So it's a little hot. Let's just make it cooler in here, too. Because I, being part robot, know how to control the air conditioning. Hopefully that'll be kicking in a minute. Well, today, let me just tell you, I've been very excited about this talk. In fact, a lot of times I practice the talk by myself, but this time I wanted to get it so good that I practiced it with Roland. And he even got excited about it and added a few things to it. So that just shows you. Let's start with the slideshow. So they're going to get it up. I'm going to talk about neurodiversity. And a funny story, my friend Scott Shell, who's a minister, who was coming through our house from Clear Lake on his way back to Colorado. He'd had a sabbatical of 3 months. Sabbaticals are really good things to give your ministers. But he was traveling by and he said, oh, God, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. It's titled What I Did on My Summer Vacation. He said, what are you going to talk about, Cindy? And I said, neurodiversity. And he just bursted out laughing and said, honey, we're going to have to give you some coaching. I said, no, really, it's good. It's good. This congregation is up to it. Let me tell you, I'm going to do a little definition of neurodiversity. And let me tell you, I'm learning about this. I have had a lot of help. I came upon an article that somebody suggested on Facebook, which I'm going to quote a lot from. And then I have an expert in our own congregation, Rima McCoy McDeed, who helps me with these things. She's an expert. Now, I love this picture. Those of you who don't know, it's the green lanterns of the universe. Every planet has a special green lantern. And I really love this picture because they're not just different kinds of humans, they're different kinds of beings. And they're clearly working with different kinds of brains. Oh, here we go. Neurodiversity is the idea that neurological differences like autism and ADHD are the result of normal, natural variation in the human genome. It's one idea that's really going through the world. It's a new and fundamentally different way of looking at conditions that were traditionally seen as pathology. Science suggests that some of the conditions, like autism, have a stable prevalence in human society as far back as we can measure. That's a picture of Michelangelo and a picture of Mozart. And it's been, obviously we don't know for sure, but it's been purported that these people have been definitely exhibited some things that would be on the autism spectrum. Nowadays, we are realizing that autism, ADHD, and other conditions emerge through a combination of genetic predisposition and environmental interaction. They are not the result of disease or injury. What if everything was part of our spiritual evolution? I say that all the time. I believe that every single thing is part of our spiritual evolution. And our evolution as humanity, as human beings, everything is part of it. You know, we may be clearly in the world at any given time, there are people at different levels of evolution or different levels of spiritual evolution. Meaning whatever you're going through consciously, whatever you're on the path. And I called this talk Neurodiversity on the Path because we're on the path. We're on the spiritual path. This presupposes that you're interested in your spiritual transformation, that you're interested in the spiritual journey of being who you are to being greater than who you are. If we are to achieve a richer culture, rich in contrasting values, we must recognize the whole gamut of human potentialities. The whole gamut. and so weave a less arbitrary social fabric, one in which each human gift will find a fitting place. That's by Margaret Mead. Who could argue with that? A society where each human contributes and each person's gift is a part of the tapestry and received. That's what we want. That's certainly what we want in this community here. We are striving for that so that at least in this room, your gift, no matter how quirky, is received. And often your gift is just showing up. Okay? Just showing up and having your energy. I see some of the quirky people are laughing. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to show you some faces of people with different things. Some are ADHD, some have some autism on the spectrum. So that's Jim Carrey. He is one of my favorite comedians. I love him. He makes me laugh because he's so crazy. Well, he's so crazy because he just has this ability. He has something different than I have. He can just make himself the most complete. He just puts his whole life and soul into everything. This is a composer, Hikari O. That's Susan Boyle, and I deliberately picked that first picture that we all saw of her when she was singing on that show, whatever the Voices show was. Thank you. What? Get back here. I can't. Okay, Will I Am. Sorry, I love Will I Am. He recently said that he's been struggling with ADHD. And most of a lot of the pictures are of performers, because those are people you find on the internet. Those are the people whose pictures you find. And of course, there's more than this set. This is Temple Grandin. I love it. She wrote Animals in Translation, Using the Mysteries of Autism to Decode Animal Behavior. Of course, people made a movie about her, and she's a famous scientist, animal biologist. Roland found this on the internet this morning because I told you he was getting excited about this topic too. This guy is Drax. I took my little brother, who falls on the autism spectrum, to see Guardians of the Galaxy, and after this scene, he lit up like a Christmas tree and screamed, "He's like me, he can't do metaphors." And for the rest of the film, my brother stared at Drax in a state of rapture. So for the last 6 days, I have heard my brother repeatedly quote all of the Drax lines from the movie verbatim, one of his talents, begin studying vocabulary test words, and tell everyone he knows that people with autism can also be superheroes. And then this guy, Stephen Wiltshire, he's an artist. Now, he took a helicopter ride over New York City, and he's drawing it now. Let's also note that an ongoing project of human evolution from the tribal stage through postmodern stage is to provide an ever more safe and reliable world for ever greater numbers of people. Paradoxically, evolution produces an increase in human liberty at the same time, which causes some tension. That's our job. It's our job. We want to make the world better and safer and more welcoming for everybody, for all of us. And that's just a picture of utopia, sort of. There's sky, there's some people, there's buildings, there's green spaces. You may not recognize those people. Some nerd in the audience is bound to recognize. It's a Fellowship of the Ring. We're on the way to Mordor, I'm pretty sure. Everyone is a stakeholder in the neurodiversity conversation because everyone benefits from the embracing of it. From Rima. This is what I wanted to highlight today. A different way of being that deserves respect and accommodation in society. I want to tell you why this is a unity principle. Unity principle in our very own Unity of Des Moines. We say we want to be welcoming. And Unity Central, the mothership, honoring diversity within the unity movement. We believe that all people are created with sacred worth. Therefore, we recognize the importance of serving all people. We encourage ministers, teachers, and others within Unity to honor the strength of diversity within their spiritual communities. It's an absolute standard unity principle. It's a spiritual principle. And the reason it's a spiritual principle is because everybody, it's us. All the people, it's us. Like I said, I was talking about quirks. Probably every single person here has felt different from everybody else at one point or another in their lives. Well, imagine, and for many different reasons. But imagine if you felt different every single moment, how that would be. How would it be? And how much better would it be when we start to celebrate that everybody's a little different and everybody's a little quirky. I don't know about you, but one of my sisters used to not be able to wear socks because she said they just had lumps in them. You know? One of my nephews, he can't go to Disneyland. It's just too much for him. You know, his parents brought him to Disneyland. They were like, what were we thinking? That was just crazy. We thought it would be fun for him. No, it's just too much for him. I myself am a little bit what my dad used to call twitchy. I don't know what he meant by that, but I know what I mean by that. It's maybe I'm a little bit super sensitive. I used to say it was like the princess and the pea. You know, I'm a princess, so everything bothers me, even a tiny little pea. And I'm talking physically and emotionally, so you can give Roland sympathy later. I wanted to get this article I read in Wired, which is about, what's the guy's name? Steve Silberman. I wanted to get it really down pat, and I might need to look up my notes. But it's just this great article. It spawned this excitement in me because I felt like this is such a good example of why and how wonderful it is when we embrace diversity and we apply education to it and we look, we get the latest information and don't go on old thoughts, you know, old maybe false memes. And I wanted to tell you what a meme is. A meme is a thought, an idea, a behavior, a style, or usage that spreads from person to person within a culture, and memes are not necessarily true. Memes are not necessarily true. So I really like the thought of identifying what a meme is and identifying that it is not necessarily true. It means you need to explore. When there's a thought that's in your culture, you need to look at it through the eyes of one power and one presence. That's our lens. One power, one presence in my life. And see how it measures up. All right, so here's a little bit of this. There's another reason I was excited about this article. Okay. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that 1 in 68 children in the U.S. is on the autism spectrum right now. That's today. In 1970, it was 1 in 14,200. Some people decided that we are having, well, there's two things I've heard people say. Some people say, people just think everybody has autism now, you know, they're making it up. And then the other thing I hear people say is that it must be something that caused it. It must be environmental. It must be, there's it's something that happened that, God, I can't even think of the word. Epidemic, that's the word. So it's an epidemic. Now, why did this happen? Well, there's a little bit of history. Leo Kanner in 1943 wrote a paper, and his view of autism was limited. He saw it as a rare form of childhood psychosis caused by bad parenting. Autistic children were dumped in institutions and did badly. No surprise. There was another man, Hans Asperger, who was a pediatrician. He did work in the 30s. He saw, way back in the 30s, he saw autistic people as a subset of humanity that had accelerated the evolution of science and technology. Accelerated the evolution of science and technology. They were a hidden thread in the weave of culture, and they had always been here. In the 70s, a cognitive psychologist in England named Lorna Wing looked at autism in the general population. So she and her people found that there was a broad and diverse and colorful range and presentation of autism and autistic traits in the children that they were looking at. They decided that the earlier definition that had been accepted by mainstream people was obviously too narrow, so they decided to throw it out. No surprise that as the definition of autism became broader, the estimates went up. So why did so many people mistake a change of diagnosis for an epidemic? It's probably because an idea gets out there like a meme, and we don't always check it out. We just hear it, and it becomes familiar to us, and we think it's true. Now, there was also a little bit of help from the media. 2020 did a show that there was an autism cluster in a polluted town in Massachusetts. Once epidemiologists went into the town, they saw that that was not likely the case. It was just as likely that more kids were getting a diagnosis. But the networks did not retract the stories then. So there's another meme that I have heard going around, which is that cell phones and tablets are going to bring down our youth and all of us, that we're all going to spend too much time using our phones and our tablets and our internet, and it's going to have a detrimental effect to us. Maybe. I would say it's a meme, so it's worth checking out and finding out if it's true. The other thing is that I do know that this technology is very helpful for certain people with autism. Some autistic people are more comfortable with icons than language. They press an icon on the screen, and the tablet will talk for them. It's an example of how you can improve the quality of people's lives by providing them with new avenues for communication. Now, this Steve Silberman goes on to explain what neurodiversity is. It's as if just because a computer is not running on Windows doesn't mean it's broken. All you Apple people out there, you're like, yeah, it's not broken. It's doing things in a different way. Autistic people are bad at reading social signals, but good at detecting flaws in visual patterns. They have a hard time coping with surprise, but they're good at pursuing a personal interest with great focus and intensity. So instead of diseases and cures and causations, we should think of autism as a different way of being that deserves respect and accommodation in society. A different way of being, or how about just a way of being that deserves respect and accommodation in society. Why is this important? Why would I talk about it on a Sunday? Why would I think that there is no one way of being, only one way that deserves respect and accommodation, even though sometimes it seems like that. I don't know about you, but it seems like there might be the normal thing that's accepted and accommodated. And learning this is a secondary evolutionary milestone. second tier evolutionary milestone. You know, when I talk about spiral dynamics and I talk about that humanity is evolving, and that when we come to the second tier is when, that's when the good stuff starts happening. We've gone from the tribal state, we've gone through might makes right. We've even gone through the green phase where everything is all about the environment. We've gone to a phase where we have perspective and where we appreciate everybody being at the evolutionary place they're at and the spiritual place that they're at, and that we have vision and distance and accommodate everybody, that we love where we're at and we appreciate where we're going, and we can have an appreciation for where everybody's at, and we can make room for them. I want to say it again, it's not them, it's us. Now, some ways of being feel more comfortable to us than other ways of being. And some people, their way of being might rub us a little bit. Even the people especially the people we live with, because they're there. And especially the people we love. But most of us probably live a fairly homogeneous life with people who are mostly like us. That's why it's really good to come to rooms with different people in it and expand yourself. And even if it feels a little uncomfortable, just get that it's a new way of being, and get that you're going to learn. What would the world be without people on the spectrum? It wouldn't have gotten this far. This wouldn't have gotten this far at all. This is what unity says. We believe that all people are created with sacred worth. Therefore, we recognize the importance of serving all people. We believe that all people are created with sacred worth. And that means that it is our spiritual job. There's a whole thing in Christianity about the Great Commission, and it's about spreading the word of Jesus. Well, I'm going to tell you, in unity, the Great Commission is to be welcoming and loving to all beings in the world, and that includes ourselves. The side benefit is, as we learn to be spiritually larger than ourselves and have the deep view, the long perspective, the bigger perspective, and we learn that everybody has something to give, then that heals ourselves, because almost everybody here, I'm pretty sure, has a little bit of themselves they haven't accepted yet and they haven't healed. So that's our Great Commission. Let's take an offering for unity.